G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Monique Allen from the Garden Continuum, based in Medfield, Massachusetts, United States of America. Thanks for your time today, Monique.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Nathan from Interview Connections reached out and thought you might be a good guest to come on.
Yeah, perfect. And he told me, and then I listened to some of your podcasts and I was like, woohoo, good assignment.
Great. Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So I own a company called the Garden Continuum. It's a landscape design, build, and fine gardening company. And we specialize in what I call the life-scape method, and that is regenerative land development and land care. And so we make money making land beautiful. We make it healthy and, really get people to be back out in their land and connecting with nature and living really fully.
Yeah, great. I was just thinking about landscaping yesterday, actually, because I'm looking at buying a block of land, and that's certainly one of the first things I want is to get a professional in, because I've got such a brown thumb, I kill everything, and just help me set the land up. It's about 1,400 square meters. So yeah, that's much needed service.
Yeah, and it's great because when you can get somebody in there to take a look at it with you, to give you sort of that beginning assessment. Because what you want is you want to kind of like see what's there that's native and real and was there versus what's already coming out of old damage. You sort of do this forensic look. Yep. and try to figure it out. And a lot peels out when you then marry that to what you want, right? That becomes the lifescape.
Yeah. And you've also got a component to your business now, which is online.
Yes. So I've been in the industry for 36 years. And so probably about 7 years ago, and I've been in education for a really long time. I've always been deeply, deeply committed to associations because that's a really, really great outreach, land grant universities, farming associations in order to get education out there. And so my name got out there and people started asking me about business. How was I doing it? Mm-hmm. How was I growing? How was I growing in the sustainable organic space? How was I doing it without pesticides and chemicals? And, and the more people asked, the more I shared. And then one day somebody just said to me, I don't want your answers. I just want you to coach me. Yeah. I just want you to help me. And it opened up this idea of really working one-to-one with owners to help them to build a lifestyle business around something that had a lot of impact and internal passion. Mm-hmm. So that's my side hustle that I love.
Great. And so apart from the coaching, you've also got an academy, you've written a book as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in open source education. So I started blogging in the 90s, as in the 1990s.
Wow.
And actually not blogging. No, I'm lying. It was a newsletter. It was like a printed newsletter where you had to fold it and then lick a stamp and put it in a mailbox. And so I just kept doing it until it was a blog, and then decided to turn it into a business blog called Academy and create as many pieces of information as I could that would help landscape business owners do better in their work.
Great. Yeah. And how did you start out?
Well, I was 18 years old and lost, didn't know what I wanted to do, working in a clothing store. And a friend of mine in college basically said, hey, why don't you, you love being outside, you're athletic. I was bodybuilding at the time and was like, we're going to be mulching. And I just looked at him and I had no idea what mulching was. But I was like, okay, I'll go do that. And I went out and I tell this story in my book that I went out there and I started working, and, first off, I'm getting paid to be outside in the sunshine, doing physical labor, which for me was great. I was a dancer growing up. And as I said, I was in bodybuilding, and I just felt so happy. I had never felt happy at work before. It was phenomenal. And I caught by the bug and just, I kept pulling on the threads, one after another, after another. I grew up in a self-employed household. My father was from the Middle East. I'm a first generation Armenian. And so the idea of being self-employed was not odd to me. It was like, oh, I have an idea. I know how to do something. Let me make a business. And so by the time I was, I started at 18. By the time I was 21, I had my own clients. I was freelancing, built a business around it by the time I was 24, and then finally decided to incorporate it when I was 33.
Great. So what year did you technically start the business? Sounds like it was late 80s.
1986 was when I started in the business, and started this corporation in 2000. It was just time to make it a grown-up business.
Right. Okay. So from 1986 through to 2000, you were working for other people, or you actually started the business in 80s?
I had a different business, different name, sole proprietorship, that I started in 1991. So from 86 to 91, I was freelance. Was never anybody's employee. I was freelancing around different contractors. It's the way this world works. Then I built my own business, a sole proprietorship, and then rolled it into a corporation because it was time. It was time to take it seriously.
Great. And do you have some key numbers to illustrate the growth of the business over those 36 years?
Yeah. Yeah. So very interesting. By the time we got to the Great Recession, I was about $1.5 million.
91.
And the Great Recession really knocked us down. So we knocked down terribly in 2010. And in 2011, I made a decision that either I was going to be able to get back up. I mean, we were up below $1 million. Either I was going to get back up or I was getting out. And between 12, 13, and 14, I grew 30+% a year.
Wow.
And we just fast tracked it. And I actually was able to build a different business. So, you think about a technician business, somebody who's got mastery and a hands-on skill. We often grow our business following our skill set. We're not actually growing our business as a business. I couldn't manage the recession. So I had to do business differently. So I had this awesome opportunity to completely rebrand, rethink, retool, and build a different business. And as I was doing it, have a really high intention about how I wanted to grow. And everybody told me I couldn't grow 30% a year. I couldn't do it. And I did it.
And so the GFC was harder than the recession. I think it was 1990. The one before
much harder because if you remember, like in 1990, I was nimble. I was young. I didn't have any, I had employees, but it was, I had 2 or 3. I was young and nimble. I didn't own property. I just worked right through the recession. I could fly under the radar. But by the time we got to the Great Recession, I had assets, I had capital, I had people, I had, there was weight. And then I also had dependencies, right? So I had these dependencies on clients that were spending, $30,000 to $50,000 a year for me to garden. Talk about a disposable item. So if they're worried about their finances, who's going to get kicked to the curb? The gardener. And I didn't understand how to create a value proposition for my clientele. And so what I had to learn was how to create relationships that made me indispensable. And I didn't know that before. The recession forced me to learn that.
And how did you learn that? Did you, speaking with a mentor, or did a course or read a book that kind of piqued your interest in this?
Yeah, great question. In the end of 2010, I hired my first coach. I've always been what I would call a hack schooler. I went to school at Northeastern University, and I got a degree in entrepreneurship. And then I did graduate work in design, botany, horticulture. But after that, I just sort of hack schooled my way. So I volunteered to be on a conservation commission in my town. And if you were a volunteer, you had access to all these classes. And if you took all of them, you could become certified, and it was free. Wow. So I have always done that, but I never invested big dollars. And so this was the first time. And I looked at a particular coach in my industry that would actually come and do a forensic look at my company. And I learned so much about the company that I was running. From there, I decided to join a peer group, and I did I did peer group work where I traveled around the United States to different landscape companies, much bigger than mine. I was about $1 million at that time. And I was rubbing elbows with, $5 and $10 million companies and looking how they were run. And, I'm a voracious learner. So I was taking things, in, and I began to just build based on that. And then finally I did hire an outside the industry coach, that was the gentleman that I worked with, had a very long history with IBM.
Right.
And he was a major sales manager, and man, he called me out on my bad selling.
Yep.
It was like I could sell. I was vivacious and passionate, but he was pointing out to me where I was leaving the sale on the table. And it was the first time anybody looked at me and told me, you've got to change because you are leaving the sale on the table. They want to buy from you and you're not letting them.
Yep.
And man, that changed the game, totally changed the game.
Yeah, it's amazing getting a different perspective, and it's awesome to hear that you've clearly got your ego in check. You leave it at the door because you're happy to take that feedback and change. A lot of people, and I certainly was early in my business career, too young and stubborn to listen to people with more experience. But that's great that you've opened your mind to that, and clearly that's reaped its benefits.
Yeah, it was really good, and there were some, there was definitely some eating of humble pie.
Yeah.
But how else do you bridge the gap, right, between what you know and you don't know, and where you are and where you want to be?
Yeah, great example of just that external feedback. Yesterday, one of the boards I sit on over here, the founder, we're capital raising at the moment. He pitched to some very wealthy people. And at the end of it, one of the guys gave him some feedback and said, you were really excited and gesticulated a lot when you were speaking about the business. But when the moment you came to talk about asking for money, you had your hands in your pocket and your heads were down, your shoulders were slumped. So, and he was blown away with that. I mean, it's, quite obvious body language, what's happening there, but to have someone else point that out, and he's now going to improve. He's got another pitch tonight, and he's going to do this round better.
I think that's awesome, because I think practicing in your body, one of the things that I thought was so helpful was the idea of understanding sales in your body more than just your voice, so what you say is not always matched with what's going on with your body language, and being able to feel incredibly impassioned about your craft is so different than believing you should be paid. And so much of what I do is help owners to look at the honorable value of what they're offering and realize that they're not actually selling anyone. They're providing a solution.
Yep.
They're providing a pathway to better living. Why would you withhold that?
Yep. Right.
And it just changes everything in your mind.
Yeah.
And then it changes it in your body.
That's right. And 80% of communication is non-verbal. So it's a huge thing. If people don't work on that, particularly when presenting or in sales environments, they're already on the back foot. I think it was Alan Pease who wrote a groundbreaking book on body language in the late 70s or early 80s. I think it's a great book. So in 2010, how many full-time team members did you have around then when you were going through all this?
Probably at that point, probably about eight or nine.
Mm-hmm. Great. And what are you up to now? Full-time equivalent?
So now we run about 22 people. We have varying, full and part-time. I would say if you smooshed it all in, it was, 13 or 14, maybe full-time.
Great. Fantastic growth. Congratulations.
Yeah.
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Honestly, when I did this, I'm a visual person, right? I'm a gardener. I love beauty and so for me to really understand something, I have to draw it. I have to externalize it. And if you just talk to me about numbers, I'm going to start to glaze over. I can get it, but it's boring. Yeah. So I drew a graph, and I got this idea in my head about the fact that we have growth and then we have plateaus. And I wanted to be able to respect the plateaus. But I couldn't understand the purpose of them. So I drew it. I just drew it. I mapped it out. I put all the years, I put the numbers. And when I saw how much I grew doing, 30+% 3 years in a row.
Yep.
And then when I made the decision to sit on a plateau, I made the decision to actually decide to stay at $1.5 million. And I remember getting some pushback from people saying, no, you got to keep growing. I mean, you could do this, you could do this. And I'm like, no, but you don't understand. The growth is going to outstrip my systems.
Yep.
So now I got to sit tight. I got to build the systems, recreate the platform, and then I can launch again.
Yes.
And I remember saying that with such confidence and feeling in my bones that I was a business builder.
That's
and
very
that was
smart.
just like awesome.
Yeah, that's very smart. A lot of people just go for growth's sake, but yeah, you're obviously very aware of the implications of that.
It's I definitely think for me, business has been far less about the number. That's not, it's important. It's great. And I get jazzed about it. But for me, it's always been about lifestyle.
Yep.
It's like the life that I want to live.
That's kind of the next question, I guess. What does success look like to you?
Success to me has always been the ability to live my life at the fullest. When I started, I wasn't married. Partway in, I got married. Partway in, then I had children. I was able to be an incredibly hands-on mother. My kids came to the job sites with me. I was able to create this incredibly full and rich life that allowed me to work hard because I love working. I love working and I love learning, but I also adore my family. And for me, success really has been able to, kind of have both of those worlds, to love my work and love my family and not have to compromise with either one of them. That to me is just, that's awesome.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Well, you know what, for me, I'll tell you, one of the things that was amazing is my adoption of education-based selling and inbound marketing. Those two things were such game changers. And in an industry like mine, which is quite misunderstood, I believe that if you can find the education points in your business, what can you teach your buyers before they ever find you? And then how can you incorporate inbound marketing so that basically you are absolutely attracting, people are coming to you. My lead gen is incredible. It's all organic. I never pay for ads. I don't ever have to hunt or look for people. I am found, constantly found with education-based marketing. That and inbound, I don't see how that can't succeed for any business.
So I was guessing referrals are a big part of that.
Yeah, it's a part of it. I mean, I definitely think my clientele does refer me, but the way people are, the other big piece for me is I went hyper local, which is a little different. That's really a bricks and mortar kind of version. But referrals are important, but more important than that is that if you're at home and you have an issue and you go on to the internet and you type the issue, what's going to come up?
Yep.
I want to be the one. I want to answer your question before you've ever met me.
Right.
And that's where the blogs and the book and all those things, I'm constantly answering questions for strangers. And so people are coming to my space.
How did you fund the business?
I'm lucky. I started the business so young that it's incredibly organic growth, but very early on, I decided I wanted a credit line. Landscape businesses way back then, this is probably in the 90s, late 90s, maybe, they're considered cash businesses, maybe a little sketchy. But I did get, back when there was a fleet bank, I got a credit line for $75,000. Mm-hmm. That was such a game changer for me. The company now is solvent. We've got savings. We've got, we own everything. Like it's just great. But that credit line was amazing for me. I also have impeccable credit. Credit has always been very, very important to me from a young age. Never abused credit. I always built credit. And so I've been very, very lucky to be able to get support like buying trucks and equipment without any problem at all. But I'll tell you, that credit line, that was a game changer.
Great. So no investors along the way, it's just yourself?
Nope, just me.
Great. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry? I think I know the answer to this.
I would definitely go into my industry. I definitely would have started differently though.
Yep.
But yes, I would go into this industry. I will die in this industry. I love it.
So how would you start out differently, do you think?
I think I would have much more of a sense of organizational structure.
Yep.
And I remember at Northeastern taking a class called organizational development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as though it went in one ear and out the other, because then I became a technician and I just wanted to make gardens. And I never really thought about organizational structure. And I think I spun. There was a period of time where I really spun. Like I didn't understand the clarity of communication and the reporting and reporting up and reporting down and reporting laterally. Like I just didn't get it. I just sort of wanted everybody to be friends. And I think if I had understood that and I had the capital and I knew I was building something like building a house, I would look at the foundation, I would build the first floor, the second floor, and decide a whole lot more rather than be the tail wagging the dog. And I think if I had done it that way, I wouldn't have crashed so hard during the Great Recession.
Yep. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Well, I think, going right back to that same thing, had I known more, if I was going to go, we've got the Great Resignation now, and we've had this whole pandemic. Yes, it was very hard for me, but it was as though you're shaking, an oak tree. You're just not going to get a lot of shake when you try to push on that trunk. And that's how I feel now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the things that are maybe not as sexy as, doing really cool work and knowing that you're a master at something, again, like you said, a lot of ego. I think being able to spend time on the business, deciding what the business is, that part for me has been such a game changer, and I came to it too late. So that's really what I would tell people to do.
Yep.
Carve out time every week to work on your business. It's like with your course.
Yep.
You got somebody who's an awesome, who can make one hell of a whiskey.
Yep.
Right. But if they can't run the business, who cares?
Yeah.
They got to have a structure, and your course helps give them that structure. So I think that's the piece that real master crafts people, service in the service trades, which I believe in. We're the ones who make the world.
Yep.
You've got to get your business in order.
I'm guessing you've read Michael Gerber's The E-Myth.
Yes, I have. And there's also one that was written for the landscape contractor.
Oh, right. Gerber wrote it.
Well, Gerber and Tony Bass. So after Gerber wrote his books,
yep,
he then partnered with people in all different industries.
Great.
And Tony Bass was the one he partnered with in my industry.
Yeah, didn't realize that, but that was the concept that blew me away. That I think Michael Gerber wrote The E-Myth back in the late 80s. I wish I had read the book 5 years earlier when I started in business, but just that concept of the three roles, technician, manager, and entrepreneur, is just mind-blowing.
It absolutely is, because you need to make the shift. And part of the problem in my industry is those of us who have done it for a while and decide you're going to open a business, or you're going to hang a shingle because you're good at this thing. There's so much emotional attachment to this idea that you do it best.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's great. You can own a job, but you will never own a business if you can't get out of your own way.
That's it. And do those other levels, manager and entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Well, I spent a lot of time honing my craft. I think I came late to owning my value and my vision as a business owner. It was very hard for me when I started to learn the word culture, like an insert culture, and realizing that if you don't build a culture, if you don't set a vision, it doesn't mean there's no culture and no vision. Trust me, your team will build a culture.
That's it.
And then you as the owner will walk in and realize,
shit,
what's this shit going on here? Like, this is not at all what I had in mind.
Yep.
And then it's very hard to backtrack out of it. And so the hardest thing for me was finding my voice, and then unapologetically making a decisive decision and saying, this is my business. This is the way we're doing it.
Yep.
It's fine if you want to stay. There's the door if you want to go.
Yeah.
It sounds like I sound very bold saying it right now, but I'm telling you, coming up with that, it was a moment. And I would say if anybody is on that precipice, that is the leap you want to take.
Yep. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think fast growth is overrated. And I think what I don't like the most is that there becomes this expectation that you're going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. And then I feel like you have to explain yourself when you say, look, I want to take a pause. I actually want to be on the plateau for a while. I don't like that hustle culture, mentality. I really do like organic growth. And so it's been hard to yank on those reins. I don't love doing that.
What do you love about growing a small business?
Right now, I think what I love the most is I love to see the people in my organization starting to become as bold and decisive and unapologetic as me. I call myself now a gardener of people. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't get to be the technician. I don't even get to be the manager anymore. So my job has become really leaning into my people and helping them to dig deep to find what they didn't know they had and then really explode. And seeing your employees develop for me has been like the best thing.
Great feeling, isn't it? Mm.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I think that mindset shift that I mentioned a minute ago about, about owning my business, about truly owning my business, but not having it be like a narcissistic owning it. It's like so for me, writing the book was huge because in order to write the book, I had to go back. I had to codify my thinking. So I wanted to call it life-scaping and not landscaping. I had to get clear about that. And so by going backward and codifying it, I was able to separate it from me, put it in a book and say, this is the thing that we're working on. And it's not me. I want you all to embrace it. That was so liberating. Painful, but liberating. Writing a book ain't an easy thing.
Oh, I've heard. What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Self-awareness. I think that one of the biggest pitfalls for, at least in my industry, for a lot of self-employed is they do not want to look in the mirror. They do not want to look at what they don't want to see. And I think that it is the best possible thing you can do to decide to choose yourself as the most important project that you work on. Your business will grow. It's kind of that thing where like the capacity of your business can only stretch to the capacity of you. And if you decide that you are not going to grow your own mental capacity, your own emotional capacity, or intellectual capacity, then the business gets stuck. So the best possible thing you can do is invest in your own self-awareness and your own growth.
Very, very true. Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course, then add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening? Over 36 years, I guess you would have had a lot of people coming through the business.
Yeah. Those adages like hire slow, fire fast, like all of those things, like you try them on and then they don't work. I think I've had some hires that have been so fantastic and transformative. Like I have one story where I hired a woman to be an office manager. And there was some argument in the company about how much we should pay an office manager. And I thought we should pay an office manager like $50,000. And what I was being told was office managers, $30,000, $35,000. And I acquiesced. I didn't stand my ground. We hired this, lovely woman, and she worked with us for a while. And then she made some repeated proprietary mistakes. And the last one, and I corrected her and whatever. The last one she made was so bad. And I just had to go up to her and I just, you can't work here. You can't
Wow.
work here.
Yeah.
Like I can't, and then I went and I hired somebody actually for almost 60,000.
Yep.
And she's in her 15th year, 14th year with me.
Wow. Yeah.
Best thing I ever did. So I think that every time that I have not trusted my gut, every time that I've had that little spidey sense,
Yep.
and I'm like, yes, I'm not right here. And I've let somebody convince me it hasn't worked. I think really trusting your gut, really trusting your vision, your mission, your values, getting those plain, that has helped me so much. And I think that every year I get better at hiring.
Yep.
But then I still do get blindsided. I mean, the whole post-COVID thing, I never really thought about something that I've now identified as the anxiety quit.
Yep.
And it's when good people just kind of like melt down and disappear. That has been one heck of a painful learning experience right now. And that is really about looking at your people and making sure that there is psychological safety,
Yep.
that they are being seen, heard, and valued, but also starting to, like you said, read the body language. That has been like an ongoing lesson, and it's not enough for me to know how to do it.
Yeah.
My managers need to know how to do it.
I don't know if you've got it over there, but here in Australia, they've got a mental health first aid certificate that I think that you can do online. I think it's becoming a lot more prominent and used in businesses, I think, which is looking after your team's mental health and well-being. It's even coming into legislation next year over here for occupational or work health and safety. A lot more of the mental health side of things are going to be written into law for businesses.
That is interesting. I have not heard about that certificate. I will certainly look into it. I invested in a PEO, which I'm really, really happy with. And they have access to mental health, which is great. So all of our people can access a mental health provider right through their payroll portal.
That's great. I had Bianca Welsh on episode 143 here in Tasmania. She's the co-owner of two great restaurants up north in Launceston, and they've got some boutique accommodation called Stillwater 7 above the restaurant Stillwater. And she's got a real passion for mental health in the workplace. So she started a not-for-profit to help businesses. I'll send you through her podcast. Because I think
I'd love, yeah, definitely. I'll definitely listen to that.
Yeah, she talks very openly about James, her husband, suffering pretty severe depression over the years and how they got through all that. So, plus a very powerful story of a team member that she identified was an A player and then just dropped to a C player. And this issue came out. She was able to support the person in the right way. And then they went back to being an A player. And after they left the restaurant, because they were working there while they were at uni, went on to become a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think you got to know yourself. If you're going to be a small business, what you are spearheading, the impact you want to have, you've got to get that clear. You've got to get it clear. And I think that owners need to not worry about what their people think. And I'm not saying be a bully. I'm just saying it really, this idea that we have to be all inclusive and everybody's got to talk about it. And we've got to have kisses and rainbows. And, it's like, this is my business. I am on a mission. I want to do this thing. If you feel empowered and excited and inspired by that, come on my bus.
Yep.
Let's do this. I really think that is so important because you'll get better people that way and you will have a better time. You won't be forcing it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
That's an ongoing, I love to work. But so I decided in the end of 2019 to get my 200-hour yoga certification.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And that was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. That was so great because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so now I do lots of yogic practices, not just the asana practice. And that helps me a lot because, when you get blindsided, and you do in business, it's how business works. You have to know how to self-regulate And so for me, yoga has been a great self-regulator. I actually love stand-up paddleboarding. And there's a lot of balance. You have to actually physically balance. And I love that. It brings me back to dancing. And even though I'm a gardener, I love to garden. So
Yeah.
I like to garden at home. I grow food and I like to cook. And so those things for me help me to create balance, because I have like a hard stop at work.
Yep.
And I know I can go home and I cook for my family. Actually, now it's just me and my husband, because my kids are, blown the coop.
Yep. Just back on adding people to the team, you said something earlier about the Great Resignation. Apparently it's going to hit here in Australia in about a month, but it was quite big in America mid to late last year, wasn't it? I think 4 million people left their jobs in America last year. That's huge. So
and it hasn't really stopped. It's slowed down,
yep.
but like we just had a resignation here, and it was one that we weren't really ready for. Because you can't. I honestly believe you don't arrive at business. It's like you keep paddling and you become better at it. But when he told me, it's very easy to say, I was offered more money, or I was this or that. And I said, so I think there's something more. And I think it's really important for you to dig into what's more, because I think that's going to help you when you go to this next place. Make sure that doesn't happen to you again. And where we got ultimately was he really didn't have a best friend here. Right. He didn't have, could do the work and respected the company and all that, but really didn't have that connection and that best friend. So I think that the Great Resignation is a lot about people doing a lot of work to fit in and do dutiful work, but not truly feeling that sense of belonging. And that's what people who really feel like they belong, they don't bail.
Yeah. Yeah, I speak with a lot of business owners over here. We're all perplexed, going, what are these people doing? They're quitting jobs. They're not going, a lot of them aren't going to another job. They're just quitting jobs. So I think part of it's the anxiety that you mentioned before, but also the pandemic has really shaken people up to make them realize, I don't want to work for a shitty boss or manager or a business that I'm not aligned with their values or their mission, or I'm just not enjoying the work. I want to do something that's more fulfilling because life's short. I think that's what the pandemic has really shown us.
Right. And I think the businesses that are going to get ahead now are the ones. So in the class that I just did, I was sort of playing with my book title, and I wrote a class called Stop Hunting, Start Attracting Your Perfect Fit Employees. And it's a webinar that you can get on my Instagram. And I was looking at this acronym of VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that when you take that environment and you put people in that environment, they actually don't know how to function. Yeah. That was a term used, I think, from the American War College to describe creating the fog of war. And so when you have human beings in that state, there's only a few choices, and most of them include leaving. Yes, right. Yeah.
And that best friend, didn't have a best friend at work, reminds me of with some of the businesses I work with, we run an anonymous quarterly survey, and there's about 17 questions for the team to ask. It's funny, the first time I did this 15 years ago in London, my business partner was an IT company. We had about 5 or 6 team members, and he was just trying to pick at each response to work out which team member. And I said, dude, that's not important. This is great feedback for us, how we're leading the business and managing the business and what needs to change. Don't try and, assign comments from one response to a certain team member. But one of those questions is in that survey is, do you have a best friend at work? And I've got a lot of questions as to why that's in that anonymous quarterly survey. Most of those questions came from a great book. I'm not sure if you've read this one. First, Break All the Rules, What the World's Best Managers Do Differently, by Marcus Buckingham and the Gallup Group. Have you read that one?
I haven't read the book, but I know the Gallup 12, the Gallup Strength Finder, and it's the Q12, which is in a pyramid. And that's where we got, and we have all of our people do the Q12 every year. And that's where that
Yeah.
that was in, and it sort of like follows a little bit like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But I haven't read the actual book.
I'll send it through to you. It's a great book, early 2000s, I think. Mark from Manager Tools, which is a great podcast for how to become a better manager, the number one business podcast on the internet for 15 years now. That was in their top 10 lists about 10 years ago. And I read it and just was amazed by it. Some great stories in there. So Gallup used $2 or 3 million data points to help people identify, we've got an A player. How do we find more A players? How do we recruit better? And so they used all these data points, interviewed managers, interviewed team members, flew around the world, worked with one massive hotel chain. They didn't say who it was. And there's a great story of how they identified to find the best cleaners for that hotel chain. By going and interviewing these A players, observing the vocabulary they use, the behaviors, and understanding why they did things certain ways. And obviously, A players is a chasm between an A and a B player. So they wanted a system to be able to attract and then hire and retain more A players. So it's a great book.
That's awesome. I will absolutely look at that. That's awesome.
And sounds like you've put a lot of time into professional development over the years.
I have. I mean, I honestly believe, things keep changing. I mean, if you and I were talking 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about psychological safety. I mean, it just wasn't in the lexicon. And 10 years before that, we probably wouldn't have been talking about culture. So I feel like I really believe in growth mindset. I really believe that, we have an incredible ability to continue to evolve and refine. And so, and this is why I started to look at podcasts, because I just felt like one of the best ways to meet people like yourself, like all around the world, like we were talking about before. I'm probably not going to get over to Tasmania anytime soon, but like now I've met you and it's just so cool. And I have your podcast to listen to. I just think that there's a lot of amazing potential out there, and we just need to be able to reach out, touch it, and know that it can transform us, even if it's just a little bit.
You mentioned you had 2 coaches before. Have you got any other comments on mentors or coaches over the years?
Oh goodness. I mean, I've worked with a lot. So when I decided I was interested in education-based marketing, I sort of went through that channel for a while. I'm actually working with a coach right now that I'm so happy about. And it's really about kind of reaching in and touching your genius zone, is finding where you are uniquely suited, uniquely special, and embracing that. So I think I'll keep doing it because I get so much out of it, and I see my business evolving and even my family evolving through it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to stop.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
So I developed what I call the business development team at my company. And it's been really great because we've done a lot of work together, reading and literally just grabbing books, reading books, implementing, having like book club and talking. And that has been so great because on the one hand, you're learning stuff, but on the other hand, you're in connection and you're kind of like teasing each other's brains to think a little bit differently. And so that's a group of 8 of us. And it's just been really good. And, the other sort of unwitting advisor is I work with HubSpot, which is a tool that I just love.
Yep.
And I realized that I had bought this Cadillac and I parked it and I never took it out for a ride because it was so much and I didn't know how to use it. And so Boston created the Boston HubSpot users group. And out of the blue, I'm like, you know what? I'm going. I need to find somebody to help me. And don't you know, I sat down and I sat right down next to Dave, this guy that I work with, who is awesome, and struck up a conversation, realized he did exactly what I wanted to do. And for like the past 7 years, I've been working with him.
Wow.
And he has been such a great business advisor. Amazing working relationship.
Yeah. All right, Monique, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Getting out of your own way. Honestly, you got to get out of your own way.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
So I love the book, Let Go to Grow: Why Some Businesses Thrive and Others Fail to Reach Their Potential. It was by Doug and Polly White.
Mm-hmm.
I read that book. It totally changed my view, because what I realized is I thought I was letting go. You know, it was all open hand.
Yep.
This one had a death grip.
Yep.
You got to actually
Yeah.
really let go. So it was really, really great. I actually listened to it and then bought it and read it and implemented a bunch of things, and game changer.
Great. I'm adding that one to my list right now.
Yeah, it was good. I really liked it.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, I gotta say, so I've been listening to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, which I really like. It's been a great, it's like short sessions and like bite size, and it's been really great. And the other one that I've been listening to, which I really like, is called Recruiting Future. And it's, Matt Alder, I think is his name. And I have loved that because it really is all about recruiting. And because of the Great Recession and all of the crap that we've been dealing with, he has brought on such great guests, and it has gotten me thinking about the strategic process of recruiting and how it's connected to retention and how it's connected to training. Awesome.
Great. I'm going to add that one to my list too.
Yep.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I'm telling you, HubSpot has been a game changer for me. Inbound marketing, if you can employ that, if you have the means. The beautiful thing is now HubSpot has a starter package. So, and it's affordable. So you don't have to be a big enterprise business to use it. But if you have the means and you can use HubSpot and work with a really solid partner to build, I'm telling you, it's like an amazing lead engine.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out 36 years ago?
I'd say, buckle up, buttercup. Be ready, be resilient. Remember that if you want to be a leader, part of your job is to get comfortable with discomfort. You have to become a navigator. There is no getting there. There's no, it's going to be just easy. You have to become a master navigator.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Monique. I've really enjoyed it. This is now my top 10 favorites. So we're about to crack 200 episodes live, and yeah, won't need any more coffee today. I got plenty of energy from our conversation. I think the audience,
that's great.
I think the audience get a lot of value out of this, and not just inspiration, but great advice there. And nearly everything you said, or pretty much, everything you said, I agree with and align with. So really appreciate you coming on today, and congratulations on the growth. Starting out on your own to now about 13 or 14 full-time equivalents, and obviously clearly doing something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This was super great.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.